I made a mistake. Now I have to live with that mistake. And that mistake was that I waited too long. Because you see, the transfer window in Italy closes on September 1st. Today's September 26th. And in that time period, Milan already played 3 games with new players and everything. And not only that, they won the 3 games. They allowed 0 goals. And this is a problem because it makes my review more difficult. Because here's the thing. Even though Milan won 3 games, they failed the transfer window. But now I have a more difficult time justifying that because the results are just good. But I'll try to not let that cloud my vision. And I'll take a step back and I'll try to remember why Milan failed during the transfer window. Because they did. And every single mistake that they made, in my opinion, goes back to one single reason, which is a bad strategy. But it didn't start terribly. Because even before the window opened, in May and June, Milan was already making plans. They were already planning for the new coach, a new sporting director, new signings. The plan was there. And they brought in Allegri quite early on. They brought in Tare as the sporting director. And those were good moves, and they started lining up players. They lined up Maxim de Kuiper, Leone, Javi Guerra, Luca up front. Allegri wanted Vlahovic. He wanted Højlund. There were names. There were plans being made. One of the ideas was to make an Italian core that they can build around. And they had all the Italian names that they thought they wanted to sign. And they started up pretty well because players-wise, they brought in Modric early on, which is an exceptional signing for free. And then they started talks with Ricci, with Jashari. De Kuiper they started talks with. So things were moving. And everybody was excited about this new Milan that was just being built. But the problem is that as time went on, nothing happened. There were no new signings. Ricci came in, eventually, but all the talks that were going on didn't materialize in anything. And as time went on again, the fans were just getting more and more frustrated. And I can see why. Because you're communicating clear plans. You have a list of players. You have an idea. Even Allegri, he wanted this player, he wanted that player. But then as slightly disputable journalistic outlets started to report on why nothing was happening, I was starting to question the competence of leadership. Because it seemed like none of the negotiations that were going on could be completed until somebody left. They needed to get rid of Theo Hernandez. They needed to get rid of Malik Cha. They needed to get rid of Musa. And because those sales were difficult, the purchases could not happen. And the problem here is that all the names that they wanted to bring in were high caliber names. They were well-respected names that were just not going to sit around waiting for Milan without the Champions League, without any certainty of success because the team was being rebuilt. So all that they could sell was a future project. Those players were not going to sit around waiting for us. They were going to sign for anyone else who was willing to show interest and put down the money. And Milan was not ready to put their money where their mouth was. They were the dreamers. And there are dreamers and there are doers. And I learned this from Matthew McConaughey not too long ago. And there's dreamers that do, and then there's doers that dream. But Milan were the dreamers that didn't do. And it caused us to lose every single top target that we had on our list. Leone, Liverpool. Maxim de Kuiper, Brighton. Javi Guerra, contract extension with Valencia. Doué from Strasbourg, too expensive. Vlahovic, too expensive. And this is the second problem that I had with the strategy, is that Milan had all these top players in mind, and then they started lowballing. It's impossible to think that when they look at Vlahovic, they don't see that he's earning 12 million at Juventus. And when you do see that, then you cannot go in with a 5 million offer, because he's not going to accept it. So clear. It's so clear. He's not going to accept it. He has another year. He's just going to pocket the money and then leave for free. And yet Milan kept persisting, kept being around, waiting for some miracle to happen, instead of just moving on to other targets. And this is what I can't understand, really. If you're such a smart management that you claim you are, like financially prudent and everything, how can you believe that you can sign these top players for no money at all, pretty much? And when is the point when you're at the table and you realize they're not going to sell for what I'm willing to offer? Because at that point, you need to stand up and you need to move on. But they didn't do it. And that was the most frustrating thing this summer, is reading the news about the same freaking players, but no progress whatsoever. Oh, we're still waiting for someone to sell so we can make an offer for this person. Dude, that person's not going to wait for us. And because the management did not realize that the strategy is not working, they were not able to sign any of the top targets that they had in mind. They signed Ricci, great transfer. He's not bad. They signed Jashari. Who knows how he will be, because he just broke his leg immediately. Modric, excellent. Estupiñán, I'm not super convinced. These were just B, C, D tier options. And the fact that when we went into August with nowhere near the team that we wanted, everybody started panicking. And I don't understand how the management did not see it, that this was going to happen. Because it was so clear that this was going to happen. And then these news outlets started reporting on tensions between Allegri, between the management, like they're not aligned on the strategy. When Allegri came in, allegedly he received guarantees that he was going to get players that he needed. Did that happen? Maybe. Rabiot was probably one of the players that he wanted, and Rabiot was a good signing as well. But a lot of the transfers are not starters in this Milan, which kind of shows me that the transfers that he got were not the ones that he wanted. Another sign to back this up is the fact that most of the signings came in at the very last minute. A bunch of defenders, and Nkunku came in 2 days before the transfer window closed, and who knows if he was on the target list to begin with. It just looks so clunky. It looks so disorganized. It looks so amateur almost. And I don't know what the plan was. I just don't understand how they couldn't see that this was going to happen. Because when you negotiate with someone who's clearly not going to settle for anything less than what they think they deserve, and you know that you're not going to offer what they want, how do you not just stand up and leave? Or, alternatively, if you're so hard set on that player, then you got to put down the money. If Allegri said, I want Vlahovic, and management said, all right, we're going to make it happen, then freaking make it happen. Become a doer, become a dreamer that does something. Does what needs to be done. But they didn't do it. And so here we are right now with a team of alternatives, pretty much, and the only option for them to save themselves is to get top 4. If they get top 4, the fans will probably forget most of what didn't happen this summer. But if you don't get top 4, then you're going to be standing there looking back at yourself in the mirror, and you're going to be asking yourself, what the hell were we thinking?